Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Chiss Ascendancy. We made it. It's our decade. I don't know if that's the centennial. I don't know. What's for 10? It's our 10th episode, episode 10. diuEG, we made it.
10 years, 100 years.
So, it's our 10th episode, episode 10 of the Chiss Ascendancy, and today we're talking about the aliens of Star Wars. What does that mean?
Alien species. So, we were talking about, hey, what do you want to talk about this week? And I was helping one of my friends do a Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons build.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, I was like, it would be cool if we kind of broke down, what our favorite Star Wars alien species were. So we both put together our list and made sure that we didn't have any overlapping to get in front of the busts that some of you guys might try to throw us under. Neither of us put Chiss on our list specifically for the fact that we're called the Chiss Ascendancy. We like them.
Right.
And we'll leave it at that.
The Chiss would have been on both of our lists.
Yeah, for sure.
But here's the thing. We didn't choose them because it's a given. Yeah. Okay? I had a teacher in high school, Mr. Yorty, and he said, when we were growing up, when we would talk about our favorite musical bands, obviously what you would say was actually your second favorite because everyone knew that the Beatles was best. And so it's kind of what we're going with here. Like, Chiss is obviously very high at both of our lists, but we're called the Chiss Ascendancy. So we're letting you guys know we like the Chiss, obviously.
Also,
but here's our top 5. And it's not any kind of like, it's not we're saying these are the best in Star Wars. It's not saying that they are the coolest or the most noble, whatever. These are just 5 that we both really, really liked.
Yeah. Also,
and we'll tell you why.
From a perspective, aliens means not from here. So humans could be an alien species, but we're going to go non-human.
Yeah, obviously.
So get over it.
Yeah.
You.
Okay, so what we did was we decided we'll make some separate lists, and then we'll go over our top 5 each. And then right before this, if there's any overlapping, we were kind of like, okay, well, you take that one, and then I'll move this one up or whatever. Luckily, I made a top 10 and an honorable mention top 10 as well, so I had 20 species to choose from just in case Samuel had chosen any that were on my list. You know what, Samuel? Why don't you go first and take the honors?
All right, let's do it. I'm going to start at my 5th so that I can finish on my number 1.
Okay.
So we're going...
So you want to do your 5 then my 5?
No.
Or you want to go 5, 5, 4, 4?
You want my 5? You want my 5? Hey, Dwayne, you want my 5?
Okay, so I'm going to start with my 5th. My 5th favorite species in Star Wars. And it's maybe not like my 5th favorite, but just like... I was like, these are some cool groups. And I was telling Josiah... the ones I chose, a lot of them that I chose, is because as a species, they have a cool thing going on.
They have a shtick.
They do a thing. I like, they work as a unit. I like that.
And here's the thing. Star Wars is so big and so expansive. I'm sure as soon as we finish recording this, I'm going to be like, why did I say? Yeah. So this is how we feel this morning.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so number 5, I'm going to go with the Ichani, which most of you probably don't know what they are. They're a very near humanoid species, but as a species, they really focus on martial artistry. And I just think that's a really cool thing. I think it's awesome when, like I said, a whole species dedicates themselves to this purpose. And so they're very driven to follow that pursuit. There's one that I was really first introduced, and that would be in The Rule of Two, the second novel in the Bane trilogy. And her name was Roskta Lassou. And I'm not... I'm from Texas.
It's pasta, Roskta Lassou.
That's not even close to an Italian name. But I'm from Texas. So
Rasta pasta. That was my thought.
Roskta Lassou.
Roskta pasta.
Oh, my God. Anyway, so she was the Jedi Weapons Blade Master at the time, which is a prestigious position in the Jedi Order. Like, not even every generation of Jedi has one. It's just something that you have to earn on merit. It's not just something that they throw somebody in that position.
Did the prequels Jedi have a Blade Master?
Not that I know of. If they did, it would have been Mace Windu. But yeah, so she, was just balling. She was noted as the greatest lightsaber duelist in the galaxy at the time. If it was just a straight up fight and Bane didn't have his Orbalisk armor, she would have wrecked him, 10 ways from Sunday. She was just owning him. And I just thought it was really cool that, they just kind of had that thing going on. So as a species, I really like the legend that she carried on. That's my number 5.
Okay. All right, here's my 5. I had something a little more niche in there, but I switched it. So my number 5 is the Zabrak species. And notable characters from the Zabrak. That's something we'll try to do, is give you notable characters so you go, that's what that is.
Yes.
So the Zabrak species is what Darth Maul and his brother Savage are part of.
Also, the Night Sisters are like the female components of the Zabrak species. They are.
Yes, but I don't care. I'm talking about the males only, because that's what I'm talking about. So specifically, it's weird because if you look it up, the females of that species are called Dathomirians, and I don't know why there's like a different designation given to them, even though they're the same species. But Zabraks are kind of thought of more as the male, part of that species. So the horns and all that stuff. I love them because they are naturally gifted in the Force many times. I love that there's good and bad. There were Zabraks that were on the Jedi Council and the prequels and stuff like that.
But you don't see them very much.
But the notable characters are mainly Darth Maul. Darth Maul, over the years, I think has become one of my favorite characters because his story has just been...
It's gotten a lot of
really,
depth
really
from Clone
full.
Wars and from Rebels.
So I really, really love Darth Maul's character. Darth Maul Locked Down by Joe Schreiber is an amazing book, and so I love that character of Maul. So the more you get to love Darth Maul, the more you love that character. They're very similar to what you were saying. Very gifted in combat ability, and specifically martial arts and hand-to-hand combat. And so Zabrak was my number 5.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, definitely one worth mentioning for sure. My number 4, we're going to go with Togorians. Which, again, I don't think any of those made an appearance in the films, not that I saw or noticed. Some ones worth mentioning, there is a Togorian. She's actually a martial arts instructor in the first new Thrawn novel.
Just called Thrawn.
Yeah, just Thrawn. And so they're basically just this...
they're giant space tigers.
They're giant cats. And so, like, the
Big
females
cats.
are, like, 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
The males can be, like, 9 feet tall. Just these big freaking bear cats walking around on 2 legs.
Super cool.
Yeah, I just think they're really cool. Very cool concept. I know Josiah wanted to read one of the solo
cool
novels.
enough that when we were growing up...
You see a tiger with a blaster on
the
cover of the
when we were growing
novel.
up, of course, when you go to the mall, you want a pair of shoes or you want a toy or you want a video game or whatever. And a lot of times our mom would be like, no, not right now.
She would go do her thing and we would spend hours reading on the floor.
If we went to Barnes & Noble and we wanted a book, who doesn't want their kid to read? And so I'd be like, well, if I'm going to waste my time reading, at least I'm going to...
That's a loophole.
If I'm going to waste my time reading, I'm going to read something cool, like a Star Wars book. And so I specifically remember being like in middle school years ago and seeing, it was called The Paradise Snare. And it was the first of the Han Solo trilogy. Obviously now Legends. But I was like, yeah, Han Solo's on there. Who is this?
And it was space tiger.
It was like a tiger-looking character leaning over with a freaking sick blaster in their hand. Yeah. I think it's actually a girl now that I looked into it.
If it
but
is
it has
a girl,
freaking glowing green eyes.
It may be Isishi, who worked with Talon Card. It was the other one I was going to mention. You see her both in the original Thrawn trilogy and in that 2-book set that Timothy Zahn wrote as a
Spectre
follow-up
of the Past and Visions of the
Yeah.
Future.
So you see her working with Talon Card, also a very cool character, but he's human, so we won't talk about
him. Yeah, it didn't count, yeah. Dude, it was so hard because we said aliens that were sentient only.
Yeah.
Because I was like, Wampas, obviously Wampas. Dang, I just thought of one. I just thought of a character.
You can change it. You got your top 4.
Frick.
All right. But anyway, that's my 4th.
I'm doing an honorable mention after this. All right. Number 4. Okay. Number 4 is Whippets. And not the dog. But a Whippet is kind of a wildebeest /
I can't remember.
Warthog looking character.
Yeah,
Here.
they look.
I kind of cheated when I was looking this stuff up last night because I have this beautiful Aliens of Star Wars book. It's kind of outdated now because this came out after the prequels. Species. I don't think we have anything from the new trilogy, the sequel trilogy with new aliens. But here's what a Whippet looks like.
Whatever that guy is, he was my favorite.
That's a Whippet. So very cool. Notable characters from this species. Obviously, in the old comics, one of my favorite Jedis. Probably one of my favorite Jedis overall. That's not canon, I guess. I mean, he's canon, but then part of his story isn't anymore. Mm-hmm. But his name is Kakruk, and this Jedi Master lived prior to the Clone Wars, through the Clone Wars, survived. One of the first people to survive an encounter with General Grievous. Survives his attack during Order 66. I think him and Quinlan Voss actually fought off Order 66 together. I think they might have been on Kashyyyk, and I think that they survived. It's a whole planet, so like they could have been spread out from Yoda. But anyways, him and Quinlan Voss, they survived their encounter, and then he even lives long enough that he is Cade Skywalker's Jedi Master, who is Luke Skywalker's like grandson or great grandson, and he survives that whole thing. So he's around like before the movies start,
survivor.
And I don't know what the freaking lifespan is on these things, but
could be similar to Wookiees.
Yeah. So anyways, he lives a very long time, and he survives all
forever.
These. Yeah, he survives all these crazy encounters. So Kakruk is one of my favorites. But actually, most recently, I reread Red Harvest, which is kind of like a Star Wars zombies kind of book, super cool. And there's a Whippet bounty hunter in that story, and his name is Tulk, Tulkh. So it's like kind of like Tulk, but he's a super cool character. Very like blunt, straight to the point. And so, anyways, Whippets are really cool.
Very no nonsense.
Yeah, they're getting down to business. Yeah, like freaking Mulan. They're very like very.
Huns didn't stand a chance.
Yeah, they're very wise. They're kind of they're quick to action, but they also are very wise before they act. Great warriors, like Kakruk was an amazing Jedi Master, but then Tolk as a mercenary, even though he wasn't necessarily Force sensitive, was an amazing warrior, and he was holding his own against like actual Sith and stuff. Mm-hmm. So those are 2 characters from that species that I really like. So Whippets are my number 4.
Very cool. Speaking of Sith, moving into my number 3 is the Sith. Sith
which was
species,
also on my list.
Yeah, it was also on his list, but
we had to share.
Yeah, he had a whole.
We wanted to give you guys 10 characters.
He had a whole menagerie of species.
So you're freaking welcome.
From, so.
Yeah, here's my list. It's 20 species.
He's very proud. But anyway, so the Sith species, you don't hear about them a lot, and I don't even know if they're technically canon.
No, they are. I'm pretty sure.
Anyway, you see them. I think the most interaction you have with any Sith directly would be in the Revan novel, which is a branch off of some of the old Republic games. Mm-hmm. And his name was Scourge, but basically they were a species that started in Korriban.
Yep.
And you see they're mainly red skin. They kind of have like tendrils, horny jowls. Mm-hmm. And they're all kind of very similar to the Zabraks, especially since the Sith come from Korriban and the Zabraks come from Dathomir, both like dark side Nexus planets. And so they're a natural warrior race. You see them, there's a lot of infighting, and there was one who united them, kind of synonymous with like the Mandalore for the Mandalorians. Yeah. Where he just kind of unite the clans.
Yeah, and they call unite us. They call the guy who
was in charge. He was the Lord of the Sith, and that's where that term actually came from, historically speaking. Yep. And so the Sith, who were just the dark side users, eventually kind of appropriated that name, but that's kind of where it all started. They're just a very cool species, very much like Twi'leks, mm-hmm. in the sense that there's the purebroods, purebloods are the elites of
Yeah.
the society, and they have special rights, and you kind of see that.
And in Legends, they're very talented and very naturally gifted in the dark side of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
And the first Jedi that were kind of kicked out of the Jedi Order, who have become Dark Jedi, I guess, land on Korriban and become like it's part of their leadership. Yeah. And so by the time that, and this is thousands and thousands of years before Star Wars as we know it.
Yeah.
So they kind of start to breed together, humans and Sith. And that's why you would see a very humanoid-looking one, but still have the tendrils. Mm-hmm. But the Sith purebloods, are kind of crazy looking.
They're the elites of the society, and because it's it's just anybody that has the time to call themselves a pureblood obviously cares about that for some societal reason.
There's also a really cool in Legends. Obviously, there's a collection of short stories called The Lost Tribe of the Sith, and there's also a book series after the Legacy of the Force called The Fate of the Jedi series, I want to say. That's the farthest that we got novel-wise down the timeline before everything was retconned. Because books were coming out in like 2010, 11, 12.
Right.
Right as Lucas was being, Star Wars was being bought by Disney. And there's Ben Skywalker, who is Luke's son, actually meets and works with a girl, Vistara Kai, I think, and her and her family and all of them are pure-blooded Sith, and they've just been kind of out of the picture for a long time.
Pretty impressive to maintain a bloodline for 28,000 years.
A lot of inbreeding.
They would rule England with an iron fist.
England and Alabama, my cousin brother, Sith.
All right. Anyway,
my
better get off of that train before I come up with an inappropriate joke.
All right, my number 3 is the Trandoshan. And so, notable Trandoshans, Bosk.
Obviously.
Some of the coolest feet.
He's got his little talons hanging
Some of the coolest
the
feet in Star Wars, yeah.
That toe's about to poke that guy in the eye.
Dude.
And he knows it, and he doesn't care.
Bosk is super cool. One of the cool things from some of the Legends books about him is that he murdered and ate every other member of his brood that was born. Yeah, so they're reptilian, and so I believe that they hatch, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably eggs, yeah.
But anyways, whether it's live birth or eggs or whatever, he gets out and he eats all his brothers and sisters. And then in the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy by K.W. Jeter, I'm impressing myself with these far out references. But whenever you actually meet Bosk's dad in that series, and to take over their family, whatever, Bosk ends up murdering and eating his dad, and he's like, "Now we're ready." Bosk is just a really cool character. One of the reasons I actually really like them even more now than I did before Clone Wars is because there's a couple of those episodes there where they have the hunts, and one of the coolest environments. I'm a sucker for oh, that's a cool area, or that's a cool planet, or that's a cool whatever. You have the cantina scene or Maz's castle where it's just oh, that's a cool looking spot.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes or areas from the Clone Wars is when they're in that giant hunting barge, and you're in their freaking lounge.
Yeah.
And they're all just sitting there slouching in their spacesuits, and they're
their hunter lodge. They got their Wookiee fur seats. They got
that
stuffed Wampa head up.
There's
on the
Wampas
wall.
on the wall. There's Gungans. There's everything. Wookiees. And I do like that. Trandoshans and Wookiees are
yeah. It's like enemies. It's kind of a pull from. This is an old short story called "The Most Dangerous Game." I think it was written in the 1920s.
Yes.
But it's about people that were great hunters and they got bored with hunting animals
and they hunted
and they
other
started
humans.
Yeah, they started like rich eccentric billionaires or whatever would lure.
Yeah, so you're not new to the game. New weird movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
in the 1920s were like, "What if I killed someone for fun?"
Reginald, I'm running out of paper. Reginald. Anyway. I can't see for all the cigar smoking. It's getting out of hand. Spotted dick.
Anyway, that's kind of where that idea starts from.
That's where your mind goes, huh? All right.
If they have a dessert called spotted dick, I'm gonna bring it up in conversation. All right, it's their fault for being weird. Don't give me so much to work with.
Now, bend over so I can sit down.
All right. Anyways.
Why was that so funny?
So the Three Notions, okay? That's my number 3.
Which is funny that we went straight British because that's like the furthest societally from the British. I don't even know who I would pick for the British in Star Wars.
Freaking Umbarans.
Anyway. Alright, what are we? My number 2. Alright, number 2 has to be the Nogri.
Ooh.
Just a super cool species.
I like that your number 2 and my number 2 have similarities. Continue.
All right, a little bit of foreshadowing. We'll get into it. But the Nogri...
what if I'm like the sequel trilogy and I don't ever say what happens?
Maybe just as like, and on to my number 1. Just passes right over number 2.
My number 2 was killed.
But anyway, so you don't see them a whole lot outside of just the one. His name is Rook. He's Thrawn's, right-hand man.
There's a whole planet of them.
There's a whole planet of them, and
but
you
really
see him a lot.
Talk to Rook.
Especially in the original Thrawn trilogy.
Yeah.
Very an enclosed species. I don't think they had unlocked space travel, and that's why you don't see them a lot in the galaxy. But they're kind of a warrior race. They're very elite. They have a very cool, tribal structure. Mm-hmm. They have a very cool way that, they just have, the elders that lead. There's like very stern rules in society, but because of that, they're very disciplined. And even though they're enclosed in their little sphere of the galaxy, mm-hmm. They're still among the fighting elite. They've got like their own technological advances, like mm-hmm. you see in, I think it's in Thrawn Treason, where Rook is kind of pestering Vader's fist and, mm-hmm. Sneaking on board or, making sure that they don't get up to anything while they're aboard the Chimera. Darn that guy mowing the lawn. Every time. Anyway,
we're gonna start recording this like 3 a.m. He's gonna be for freaking mowing the lawn at 3 a.m. All right, continue.
But anyway, so it's just cool that they kind of have their thing going on.
Yeah.
And I just think it's cool that they're so encapsulated and yet mm-hmm. they're still keeping up, toe to toe with every other fighting species in the galaxy. That's awesome to me.
Yeah, they're basically like space crocodiles.
Yeah, they're
super cool.
They're super dope.
And man, props to Mark Thompson when he's reading the Thrawn trilogy because that sounds like that would murder your voice.
Oh yeah, dude, he's killing it.
Because he's like
the opposite of the. I don't know if you guys ever a certain point of view. It's it was the 40-year Star Wars Celebration novel, a bunch of short stories of what might have happened, but by far and away the longest book.
And the worst one at that.
The longest short story in the book. It's like an hour and a half. And he reads the first... It has to be like the first hour. And he's just reading it from the point of view... What's that species called? Chadderfan. A little bat-looking fellas. But he reads it like...
freaking coronavirus.
For the whole time. And you're listening to this. And I was suffocating in the inside of my car. I was like, please, for the love of God, just... In this story, I could not care less about this one-handed instrument. But anyway...
But you had to finish the story
to finish it. You had to get to the next one, and I needed to know. I needed to have that continuity. But yeah, so... Nogri. Yeah. Very cool species.
Okay, my number 2... I'm not going to pull a freaking Ryan Johnson and kill my number 2 right in the middle of the story. Sorry. So my number 2...
Is this your belt?
All right, my number 2. So you said species that's not that well known, but is really cool in legends. Very stealthy. What's more stealthy than being freaking invisible? My number 2 is the Bothan species. Bothans are maybe my favorite species.
I always thought they were really cool, and not to poop on your choice.
Oh no, go ahead.
But
here we are
reading some of the older novels. They were kind of douchebags.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
they were just saying all we're gonna say today, I guess.
Yeah, it's coming out. Dadgummit, I've been in one room for the last week, so you're gonna hear it all.
You're gonna hear me.
I got some problems with you people.
Okay,
so you're gonna hear about it.
Here's my thing with the Bothans.
Festivus.
They are
for the rest of us.
They are known for being kind of selfish.
Yeah.
And And the reason why is because there's one main character named Borsk Phalia from the New Republic era, and he's very he's a politician's politician.
Yeah,
like he's shaking all the hands.
Yeah, I just can't stand that. But overall, very cool species.
But
props.
At the end of the day, there is a moment that comes up where he realizes for the good of not just his people, the Bothans, but for the good of the galaxy, he's got to do X, Y, Z, and it costs him his life, and he does it like that. Mm-hmm. And so, one thing that's pretty cool in this book, like I said, it's a little outdated now, but the new essential guide to alien species, we need a new essential guide. But in here, when it talks about the Bothans, one thing that was really cool at the very end, which I totally agreed with, which kind of wraps up one of the reasons that I really like it, is it says, the very last thing is it says, many other species find Bothans difficult to deal with because they seem to lack selflessness, but in reality, most Bothans ultimately do believe in freedom and sacrifice to achieve a venerable goal. They will take chances and risk much in any conflict that threatens those they love or those to whom they've pledged loyalty. And the first time we hear about the Bothans are actually in Return of the Jedi, when they're getting the crew together for the run on the second Death Star, and Mon Mothma says, many Bothans died to bring us this information. And I'll never forget how embarrassing it was when I kept tweeting at Gareth Edwards if we were going to see Bothans in Rogue One, because I was like, come on, they brought the information. And then when I realized that information was from Return of the Jedi and not A New Hope, I was very embarrassed, and I deleted my tweet immediately and apologized. But the Bothans, if they're loyal to you, and if they're like, hey, I've got your back, then they'll freaking throw themselves.
Right, which is very similar to the Nogri.
And it kind of reminds me of, there's a funny meme. It's an Admiral Akbar.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going somewhere else. I thought you were talking about how I was that guy from that Family Guy bit, and he's like, you know who I hate? Bothans. And then Mon Mothma's like, many Bothans died, and the guy next to him was like, ooh.
No, I forgot about that. But there's a meme that was like, I'm never sending Bothans to do anything for me. I asked them to get me coffee. All day. But anyways,
dude, it was the pause in the meme too. He's like, send him to get me coffee. All dead.
Yeah. So Bothans are super cool, and we grew up on Battlefront 2, the original Battlefront 2 after Revenge of the Sith.
Those guys were pesky.
And I love playing as the Empire. Sam loves playing as the Rebellion, but I would play as the Empire. And then
every once Han Solo and hits headshots for days.
Yahoo! Every once in a while, we would. Why does your Han Solo sound like Peter Griffin?
Because that's what he sounds like, man. He's just running around. He's like, Yahoo!
Yahoo! It'd be fun. It was funny because every once in a while we'd be like, hey, let's do a galactic conquest and let's go together as stormtroopers. And then out of nowhere, you just be, here we go, we're doing the thing, blah, 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 and we're going. And you would just see this freaking beehive of freaking whatever the freak.
Apparently, the rebels did not care about disintegration.
They have a disintegration gun, and then you kind of look, you scroll over, of course, your character's like this because it's 2003, and you're like, what's going on? And you look over, and there's like just an outline, you can't really tell what it is, and they have this, I don't know if it's a cloaking device or if it's something they can do. It's a species, but anyways, Bothans, great spies, great freaking, if they have your back, they have your back. And I did love Borsk Phalia's character in the long run. So Bothans are one of my favorites.
Yep. All right. Dang, down to my number one. All right, my number one, and I had to pick this because I've talked so much about how I love a person of this species, and it fits right in my niche.
It's humans.
Of it fits right in my thing of a group of people that have a thing going on.
Yes. And the thing is very cool.
It is very cool, and that would be the Kifar, which is a very near human species.
Are they in here? Go ahead. Sorry.
Quinlan Voss is a Kifar. They're mainly only distinguished from humans in that pretty much as a species they have like very tan skin, dark hair, and they have facial tattoos to recognize what kind of clan they come from. So that's what Quinlan Voss's tattoo is underneath his eye. It's about his clan. But the thing, dang, I'm better than the book.
No wonder.
The thing that's cool about the Kifar is that as a species, they're very prone to psychometry.
Yes. So tell us what psychometry is. For
so psychometry would be if I picked up this book,
okay,
and I'm touching this book, I can feel and read its history. And so Quinlan Voss, you see this in the Clone Wars series, he is basically almost always on the road because he's like their man on the street because he can hunt down people really easy. When Zero escapes, he goes and talks to the Hutt's notorious liars, and picked up a cup that somebody had dropped, and he could tell that Zero had been talking to them. Again, amongst the Kifar, Quinlan Voss is exceptionally powerful in this, but that's also because of his force talents. But I just think their species is very cool. They have a cool network going on. They've got, the whole tribal structure. They've got the loyalty within themselves, but they're also very selfless. Yeah. You see that in Quinlan Voss a lot. And I just really appreciate what they've got going on. I think psychometry is super dope. I think it's cool that they have it as a species. Just kind of ticks all the boxes, and
I think that they have the most. Really, they're right there. There's other species too, but they're one of those, like Zibrax are kind of like this, but they have the potential to be a very powerful force user because they kind of float there on the line of light and dark.
Their species is constantly interacting with.
But if you can master that, then you'd be super powerful. That's why I think Maul would be an amazing Jedi. If he could have, obviously things would be completely different.
If he wasn't screwed over from day one.
So your number one is.
I think it's going to be Kifar. Yeah.
Okay. Here's my number one. It's kind of an obvious choice, but Wookiee. Wookiee's my favorite, and again, super loyal.
You see them in the movies, and they're very cool. You see them in the novels, even cooler.
Yeah. Did you know they have freaking claws?
They have claws.
They're retractable claws to climb the trees. The Rocher trees.
They're just freaking running up the trees.
I
like
love
Tai Lung escaping from the prison.
I love
running up the rocks.
I love how strong they are. I love how loyal they are. I love how big they are. I love their freaking tree houses. It's sick.
It is very cool.
It's basically everything about the Ewoks times 10,000% better.
And they've got a super cool planet.
Yeah, Kashyyyk is really awesome. They're very peaceable, but when war comes, it's kind of like Teddy Roosevelt, like walk softly but carry a huge stick. Like that's their style. Chewbacca's super dope. Chewbacca's one of my favorite characters. I like Chewbacca more than most human characters. Like, I love Leia, and I know there's a lot of Leia fans out there that are like, don't talk crap about our princess. I don't know why I turned into Carrie Fisher just then, but dude, Chewbacca better than Leia to me. Chewbacca better than Lando, better than almost anybody.
Yeah.
And so
I think what's very cool about them is that I've never interacted with a Wookiee character I didn't think was super cool. Mm-hmm. You don't see one that's just a doucher. You don't see one that's looking out for number one. They're always looking for the greater good. They're always defending what's right.
Except in the comics, there's one called Black Chrysanthemum. And he's this giant, like he makes Chewie look like a toothpick. And he's a giant black Wookiee bounty hunter. Even still, super cool. So, Wookiees are really awesome. Yeah. Here's my honorable mention before we cut it off because I just remembered.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to go after the video. We said, okay, Wampas are my favorite species, like, of aliens that are sentient.
Are you going to say Tauntaun?
No, because they're not sentient either. Loth Wolves.
Ooh, that is cool.
I totally forgot Loth Wolves from Star Wars Rebels / everything else now that Dave Filoni's got his hands in the meat. Freaking Loth Wolves are so cool because they're very primal looking. They just look like a wolf with like scales on their face. They're very regular. And so
except for when they're not.
But then all of a sudden
all over the planet.
They'll just run and they'll be like, ready? Now we're not. Now we're here. It's just like, I don't know how they work, dude. And
they are a mystery.
Like, we could get a whole...
They're kind of like the...
I want to know how they work. Because it's like...
You know what's another cool one? Bendu.
Bendu is cool.
Bendu is cool.
So, basically, Loth Wolves is cool. Bendu's cool. Yeah, I guess he's an alien species. Kind of like a spirit almost. So, anyways, Loth Wolves was my one that I didn't think of. Again, I was going by like original trilogy / prequels / legends. There's so many. I could just go off on a tangent.
Right.
But Wookiees are my number one. They're the most known alien in Star Wars. When you think about random people, you just meet them on the street and you go, hey, what's this? And you point to, a Zabrak. There's going to be so many people that are like, is that the devil? If you go, who's this? And they go, oh, that's Chewbacca. Yeah, he's a Star Wars character. I've never seen the movies, but that's Chewbacca. Like, he's just instantly recognizable. Here he is. There he is.
Right on the
shirt.
shirt.
Use a different background to give him a little a little pop, but it's okay. But yeah, Wookiees. So those are our top 10 favorite alien species. It could change, and we could do this again next week. So we'll let you know. But until then, may the Force be with you.
And remember, the only family you have yet is me. And that guy mowing the lawn, because he's here every week.
I was going to make that joke.
Got him! All right.
We'll see you next time.
Take it easy.